Before we get started, I just want to sort of give you a little bit of information about how immigration forms work in LegalServer. So for those of you that are LegalServer clients for quite a while, if you've built out some forms in LegalServer, you know that you can build a form directly from a client case. And what that allows you to do is pull in basic information that you've already entered for the client. So it's going to save you a little bit of time. It's going to definitely save you some effort to have all of that in there. Okay, so again, immigration forms allow you to, again, save yourself a little bit of time and effort. The way that immigration forms appear on your LegalServer site is that by default, if you just got the immigration forms module, we push out to you all of the active immigration forms that we have on our site. And as USCIS comes out with new versions, what we do on our end is we get the new form, we have the developers process that form, and then somebody on support, usually myself, will go through and map out those forms to pull in all of the various fields. So it's not instantaneous. We do have to do a little bit of background work to make sure that the forms that we're using are pulling in the correct information and get pushed out to all of the sites. But basically, we do try to stay on top of that. I know that Ron Wilhoit and myself are both on the USCIS listserv, so we do get those announcements. But if you have a form that's coming out and you are particularly concerned about getting that up on LegalServer, just feel free to shoot us an email at support@legalserver.org. Okay, so what I'm going to do today is just walk you through basically creating a form in LegalServer and how that works and where you can save it and the tips and tricks for doing so. So I'm on our LegalServer demo site. If this is one of your first meetings with us, one of your first trainings, you'll notice that this may not look exactly like your demo site that you're used to. The functionality is absolutely the same. Everything that we do here will work on your agency's demo site. It just might look a little bit different. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab a case, and I think it worked last time I tried. I'm going to take Test Smith. So I'm on Test Smith's client, case profile. So I'm just looking at all the information that I've put into this person's case in LegalServer. And it's going to be configured slightly differently. But again, I'm on a case profile and I want to do something in LegalServer. So I'm going to go up to my actions menu. So you'll notice here, again, because we're on a demo site, you'll see a lot of information, a lot of options, a lot of submenus. Your actions menu may not look exactly like this. And if it does, you may not know exactly where to go. I think this one is under special programs, and usually the process that you're going to use is called something like immigration form, or add edit immigration form, or add immigration document, something similar to that. I can also, if I wasn't sure where to find anything, I can also go up to the search box here, and then I can find, again, where I can make my immigration forms. So you'll notice the first thing that you'll see here is that I have two tabs in my immigration forms. The first is the immigration forms themselves, and we'll come back to this list momentarily. But I also can see any form processes that have been started for this client. So this is, again, one of our favorite little test clients. So you can see all of the different forms that have been started and created for this client and those dates of creation. I can click into those processes if I want and look at those forms here. But for instance, if I'm on Test Smith's case and I want to create a new immigration form, what I'm going to do is come to this Immigration Forms tab and scroll through the list of available forms. So as site admins, for the site administrators on the call, you have the option to either activate or inactivate any of these forms. So as you know, USCIS will come out with multiple updated versions of forms, sometimes in the same calendar year. What we try to do in LegalServer is, again, get those forms into the system, get them processed, and get them pushed out to sites. But obviously, you'll have older versions of those forms, and we do rely on administrators to clean those up on your site. So if you shoot us an email and you say, hey, I have 14,000 G28s, I don't need all of these old ones, we'll just tell you that you can go and you can inactivate those forms. And I believe you should be able to do that, if not from this tab, then through your admin tab on your site directly. But what I want to do is I want to find a form that I'm going to generate for the client. So I think I have had good success with the I-918 on this site. So I can scroll down. I can do an in-browser search if I want to find my I-918. And you'll notice again that I have a few different versions of the 918. What we do when we update a version of a form on the LegalServer-based immigration site is we make sure to put the latest version in the parenthetical right next to the form. So looking at this, if I had an older one, from 2016, I would see it next to the I-918. But I know that this is my most recent form because in the parentheticals, I have that it is the February 2017 version. So I can see the title of the form, that it's the petition for you non-immigrant status. And then I have a few options over here on the right. First things I can do if I want is if I wanted to just look at the blank form. It's going to open that in a separate tab. And I can see this form is going to pull up and I can start entering all of the information I want just on this form. So if I wanted to start from scratch and just put everything in manually, I can certainly do that from the blank form. Similarly, if I wanted to just pull up the PDF, I can again, just gonna open it in a separate tab. And I can again start pulling in information to the PDF. I can print, I can do everything I wanted from this PDF as well. But what most people are gonna wanna do when you have the immigration forms module is generate the form for the client, pulling in some of the basic information that we've already collected. So the way that I can do that is I'm gonna go to the form process option. And one more thing I did just want to point out before I forget, you also have here for every form that's been updated, if I go and I open in a separate tab, I can download and see that I can be taken right to the most recent version of instructions for this form. So it's really handy to have these right there next to the newest version of the I-918. I have all my instructions right from the USCIS website. So again, these are not our instructions. This is directly from the government. So I have, again, I've looked at all these things. I don't want necessarily to go to my blank form or my PDF. If I want to generate this form, pull in the client's information, and then save this form to the case, I'm going to want to click on Form Process. So the first thing that you'll notice is over here on the left, if I just expand, and it might be a little difficult to see in the Zoom, but you can see that this is a multi-step process where I'm going to first enter information about the actors involved in this form. I'm going to tie in any related information, and then it's going to bring me to the HTML form itself. So the first thing that I can see here is that I have a list of persons that have been selected for having to be entered into this form. So whoever set this form up in the background, it was probably me, went through the form and said, okay, USCIS has asked for somebody called the petitioner, and then there's a family member 1 who can either be the spouse or the child. I've got some additional family members. I have an interpreter and I have a preparer. So what this allows you to do is go and from the drop down, it's going to tell you all of the people available on this case that can be selected to fill the roles for each person actor. So for petitioner, again, Test Smith is my client, and by default, they're going to be my petitioner. And then I have the ability to just pull from this drop down whoever I want for my, my spouse in the situation, cleverly named spouse test. And then I can just go ahead and put 2, 3, 4, 5 family members. So again, if I want kiddo 2 to line up with kiddo that, I can again put that all in. It doesn't really matter for our purposes here, but obviously an experienced practitioner is going to want to make sure that, all of the family members align with what needs to be in that form. I also have, again, in addition to the client and their associated family members, I can select who my interpreter is going to be. So I think we're just going to go ahead and put pro bono test as our interpreter, and then preparer I can select for LegalServer staff. So normally preparer would default to the primary advocate on the case because we assume that, again, the lawyer on the case is the one who's going to be preparing this form. I have a few different options. If I had everybody in here and I realized that I forgot, random cousin number 12, who's also part of this petition, if I wanted, I could save all the information so far and just add a new family member to the case so that they would show up in these drop-downs. I'm not going to do that here, but it is an option if you're going along and you're creating this form and you realize that you need to add some people. You do have that option. For now, I'm just going to hit continue, and it's going to move me to the second step in my process. And you can see here that I have in my form overview, I can see all of the actors that I've already selected, and I can skip around and edit the information for whoever I want to edit information for. We're going to start with petitioner. And so the first thing that you can see is all of the information that I've already put in, either through the intake process itself or through an additional auxiliary process, is on the case and will show up here. So obviously for Test Smith, I've put in their country of birth, city of birth, A number, email, all of the information that I need has already been populated from those processes, again, either at intake or through an aux process. I could, if I wanted, update this information by just clicking on this edit button. And it's going to expand all this information. I can, again, change the name for Test Smith. I can change any of this information, whatever makes sense. If I realize that, I forgot to put in the passport number, or I realize that maybe there's a typo, I can change all that information. I can save that if I've made any changes and stay on the page. I'm just going to leave it for now, but that is something that you can do on this page. Be aware that any changes that you make, if I did come in and I changed any of the information at this stage in the immigration form process, it would save the information to the case itself. So again, if I change the A number here, it's going to change the A number on the case, and anywhere else I want to see or view or pull in information for the A number, that's going to be whatever that updated value is. So scrolling down, you'll see the additional information the form is going to ask for. I have to sort of tell LegalServer where to pull that information from. So the first thing I'm noticing is that it wants the petitioner home address. So I can select from any of the addresses I've already put in. I can give it a US mailing address if I want as well. And I also, when I go to the drop-down menu for something like, say, foreign mailing address, if I wanted, if I didn't have anything that I had already put into the case itself, I can go to new address for Test Smith, and that's going to allow me to, again, put additional information into the case that's going to live on the case. So for example, if I just wanted to say, okay, the safe foreign address is clearly going to be 123 Main Street, and that's going to be in Chicago, Illinois. I can certainly put that in here. I also can collect the move-in dates for this case, and I can have that, again, all saved to the case itself. I can indicate if this is the primary address, and again, when I save and continue to the next page, all of this information will save not only just on this page, but to the case itself. So again, a couple different addresses. I come down here and I notice that we're still on everything that we need to add and edit for the petitioner. And it's going to call for a petitioner alias. And so I can see if I've put in any aliases for the client. If I want, I could also, again, add a new, alias. So I can have card, because I like to use that one over and over again. I can put in an alias, and then I can also select from any of the immigration entries that I've already put in. I'm just going to randomly grab some out of order immigration entries, and I can select all of this information for the client. And again, the same way that I could with people and addresses, I could also, if I wanted, edit any of the information for this entry. I could add a new entry. And what I want to do, if I hit continue, it's going to take me again to that HTML form. But if I want to go through each individual actor that I've already selected, I'm just going to go to next actor, and we're going to work our way down the list. So again, for family member 1 in the I-918, it's going to ask me for information about the spouse. And this information, again, is all information that I've already put into the form. I just have to, again, say, oh, by the way, this is the address for spouse. Same thing as before, I can edit that information. If I needed to add a new address for spouse, I can do that the same way that I did for the petitioner. We're not going to do everything over and over again, but as you can see, as we go through for kiddo number 2, it asks for, obviously, a lot less information than we needed for the petitioner, but for kiddo 2 and 3, we're going to have a variety of exciting addresses, and we can just pull in for cousin. And we can, again, make sure that for our interpreter and our preparer that we have all of that information. So again, we've gone through our entire list of actors. I could add other people if I wanted to. But for now, if I'm going to assume everything is in there, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hit continue. And what this is going to do is bring me to the HTML form. So a few different things to point out. First is that the immigration forms in LegalServer are designed to sort of be used by all agencies. So the mappings that we do, the way that we structure the forms, are designed to apply to the broadest number of clients that we have. So some agencies are always going to have, for example, the preparer be the interpreter. That may not be the case. So we do give you the option to sort of, make sure if you want to have a separate interpreter, you can do so. So every now and then we'll get questions, can we have the form do X, Y, Z? And in general, the forms are the way that they are. We push them out to all clients. There is a lot of configuration that can happen at this sort of final step in the creation process. But if you're really looking for a lot of configuration, if we press this button, can the form do this? That level of configuration, unfortunately, is not available. But what it's really good at doing is just saving you the trouble of typing in things that you've already collected. So you've got the benefit of having all the clients' names and address information, attorney, state, bar. This information's already been collected. It's going to pull into the forms. If I had realized that, for example, I forgot to put in care of, I can go ahead and make the change here. So I can say, okay, well, Mama Test is going to be the one to receive mail at the safe mailing address. I can go ahead and put that information right into this form. One thing that you do want to remember is once you're at the point of generating this HTML form, any information you put is just going to save to the form itself. It's not going to save to the case. If I go back and I look at the mailing address for West 56th Street, I'm going to see that Mama Test is not going to appear on the case itself, because again, any changes that I make on this form are just going to be on the form itself. But I can scroll through, I can see again, information that I've put in for home address and alien registration number, social, all come through. Marital status, gender, date of birth, this has come through. Things like all of these little check button questions, I'm a victim of criminal activity, yes or no. I've suffered substantial physical or mental abuse, yes or no. These are not things that you generally will have collected in LegalServer. But as you go through with your client, the advocate again can come through and make all of these selections, and they will in fact save to the form, even though they have not been pre-populated. So there's lots of drop downs. I can again make sure that I have the state coming in. I can again put all the information in about removal and exclusion proceedings. So I'm going to scroll through because this is not terribly interesting. But one thing I did want to mention is that because the immigration forms are designed to sort of pull in and are mapped to LegalServer system fields, I often get asked, if I make a essentially step-by-step process with custom fields, can those pull into the LegalServer immigration forms? And unfortunately, they can't. Again, because these forms go out to all sites, there's no way to sort of say, okay, for this site, pull in the field that is called XYZ, but pull in the information from field ZYX for this site. They're just not smart forms. Again, it's good basic information to get you started, but those configurations, unfortunately, are not available at this time. You can just go through and do all of our little button selecting if we need to. I'm going to scroll, scroll, scroll. And again, it's pulling in everything that I've put in before. So the children, the spouses, family information that I've put into my form are going to generate here. I've got my interpreter, I have my preparer, everything that I could ever possibly want is in my form. So once I come to the end of the form, you'll see that I also have, again, for a lot of the most recently updated forms, this is what the addendum looks like. It's going to pull in the client information and allow you just to refer back to the page, part, or item number that you want to expand on. A couple things that I did want to show down here. I can add information if I wanted to add additional information. I could put it right into the form. I can give the form a name. So for today, I'm going to say 2017. What are we on today? We are on 6/20. And I'm going to say this is my demo test I-918. I'm going to save that to the case. I also can, which has been pointed out, if I am using the activities as part of LegalServer, I can add this as an activity itself. So you'll see when I expand to add activity, depending on how I've configured this in the background, I can save this as a dedicated activity that's going to save to the case, in this case for Test Smith. Depending on how I've configured this, I can just call this a court filing or maybe an immigration filing, whatever I want to call it. I can have a specific item number item value for whatever I'd like. And I can save this as an item as an activity to my case. And then what I can do, if you see this right here, I have the option to add document and continue. And if I click that, what it's doing is it's generating this document and adding the document to the case. So I come to this page, I have generated my form, and I can do a couple different things. I can click here just to return to my case profile. And if I do that in a separate tab, what you'll see is I'm taken back to, surprise, my case profile. And I can see that if I scroll all the way down to the bottom of the page, and again, your case profile might not have as much information on it. This is our demo site, so there's a lot of information here. But you can see that in my document subfolder, if I expand here, because I did save to my document subfolder, I can look and I should be able to find my 2017-620 demo test form that I've just created. So this is what I made today. This is my I-918. I can download the form if I want, which we're going to do in a minute, but I can find it here. So it lives right on the case profile. It's easy to find. But again, if I wanted to, if I click here to download my generated form and give it a second to load, I'm going to click on this form and then, oh my goodness, there is no information. What have I done? So this happens pretty often. I get alarmed emails. When you go to generate the form, you just have to make sure that you're pulling up the form from your downloads. So if you can see my screen, you should be able to see that I am pulling this up from my downloads folder. I have my PDF form, and this has now pulled in all the information that I had put in before. So not only the pre-populated information that came in from the HTML form, but because I put Mama Test here in the care of name, that came over as well. And again, all that same information is here. I can print this out. I can have the client physically sign it. And I have my PDF that is going to live on my computer. I can save it. I can download it. I can email it to somebody to review, whatever I want to do.